All right, semifinal number two between these two legends of our game, Delial versus Turdz. Hopefully, the game starts shortly. Sorry about me getting comfortable in my chair, and if you heard the squeaks, we will be on a different chair eventually. This is a huge one. Obviously, this has been a big rivalry. They have met in a bunch of events. Turdz wins the final 2-1 in Cosmos. Delial wins the final 2-1 in Kefka. So they've each taken a title off each other in the finals of a recent tournament. In general, it's somewhat Delial favored, but with chances for both sides, which is kind of what you'd expect. They're both fantastic players. Um, I think Elemental is going to be interesting. I'm not sure how it influences this matchup, if it means we should be thinking differently about it than we normally would. No plus wall, I'm also not sure how it influences it. I think these are two of the best players at adjusting to alternate rule sets in quite different ways. I think, like, I don't want to call it a pure talent versus, or like, skill versus talent kind of thing, of like, effort versus natural talent. Oh well, they didn't. Deli didn't make his hand in time, but I think Deli just has a really, really wonderful feel for how different rules will affect play and how to adjust for it. And Turdz, on the other hand, is just fascinating to talk to about different rule sets because he has done a lot of thinking about how they work and the changes they make. And so you end up at this place where, and maybe Deli has done that thinking too, I just haven't seen it in the conversations because he just so clearly has a good feel for it, but he's not described getting to that feel. And I've heard Turdz describe getting to that feel, so I know the kind of thinking he's put in around it. So I think they're both really good at adjusting to slightly offbeat rule sets. Particularly this kind of rule set where like same plus wall is very weird, right? No plus wall, like same plus, is not that weird, but it's also not the rule set people usually play. So it's like the most normal of the variants. Now, something same plus does is it means cards that can slide in sides become more valuable. Like horizontals, verticals are better because side squares are more likely to have potential safety when 5 is occupied. If you think about side squares in general and you think of how they interact with the board, they interact with corner squares, right? And corner squares inherently touch two walls. And if you think about corners, corners interact with side squares, which inherently touch one wall. So if you're trying to take a corner card, you often, with plus wall included, sometimes you have the plus wall, but often you're going to set up to take it with interactions with other cards, right? There are more card squares that a square that attacks a corner interacts with, because to attack a corner you need to go in a side. A side interacts with one corner and two walls. One wall and two cards. I'm speaking terribly today. Apologies. And so taking a corner is more based on interacting with your own cards. But taking a side is more based on interacting with walls. So I'm not saying like side starters necessarily become the move, though you will see a lot more side starters, and we did see a side starter yesterday, 2 days ago for you, in the other semi-final. But I think sides in general are better to play in earlier. That doesn't mean at the start of the game, but it means just we should consider moves like that at a higher rate earlier in the game than you normally would. And corners are somewhat weakened because the interactions with corners are more unchanged, while the interactions with sides are weakened. On the other hand, with the specific stips in place, there's not much play for horizontal and vertical cards, right? As you can see, each player has gone for the 198 they have allowed. They've in fact gone for the same one, and they've gone for these 977s. Both have played two 977s. And 977s just aren't going to work that cleanly as side sneaking cards. Though we'll see. They've both gone with the 9-7-3-6. We also saw that played by both yesterday. I think the key to it is a 9-7 with an element, and people were running low on those. Turdz for an extra element. Turdz went for 4 elements here, grabs an 8-8 corner. Does he have a 9 in each direction? He does, so he might be able to get away with it, but it seems a little risky to me. On the other hand, an 8-8 might play really well if the elements land right. And in fact, if we look at this, the elements may have landed right for it. We'll get back to that in a second. Delial, on the other hand, has gone for a consistent 9-7s with a 5-5-9-7 to get an extra element over what, another, like a 1-7-9-7 would offer. Though I think 1-7-9-7 would have been a very nice pick here, and that one actually is the one with an element. It's interesting Delial did not go what I think is the best of the 9-7-7-1s, the 1-7-9-7 we can see in Turd's hand, because it both has an element, and I prefer the spear type to, I prefer 1-7-9-7 to 7-7-1-9. I prefer spear to wheel for these kinds of cards. Anyway, the other thing to look at the start of the game is elements. And we see a water element in 1, which no card has. We see dark in 4, which no card has. We see ice in 7. So yesterday, the 9-7-3-6s were dead at the end of the game. Today, they might have real impact. Because that coming out as a 10-8 corner is obviously kind of meaningful. Those still can be taken, right? It's not safe. Then there's the wind element in 5. Okay, nothing interacts with that. But very, very importantly, a kind of saving grace for Delial here is this fire element in 6, because that stone element in 9 makes that 8-3-7-8 a 9-4-8-9, right? That 8-8 corner could suddenly be super safe to Delial's hand, right? Because 8s are going to be hard to set up against. Nothing here is built to take 8s. It would have high numbers facing out, but Delial has this capture in 6. Delial has the +1 in 6 as well. So the huge question for Turdz is, can he make that move anyway? Is there some way he can set up against that such that he has really good play? And so a really interesting and very highly risky idea is to start 8-3-7-8 and 9. Say Delial takes in 6. Do you have a setup in 2? And specifically, I'm thinking, do you have 1-7-9-7 in 2, setting up 2-9-8-6 in 3 with a somewhat uncomfortable combo, because that can be comboed back, and setting up a same in 5 with 9-7-3-6 that notably is also a little uncomfortable because Delial has the combo too. Delial, in fact, has the same combos in both squares, and you have different cards for each combo square. I think this is too high risk. That you don't have the same card for both squares means Delial can run out the board, you use one, and then he occupies the other, and if you ever occupy them early, Delial can combo back. Now, you maybe get there with specifics, but I think this isn't going to work. Do you have any other setups? That's the one I saw, but that doesn't mean it's the only one. I do, however, think it is the only one. 9-7-3-6 in 2 sets up a threat in 3, but not in 5, for instance. Okay, so you probably don't want to go into that. However, 8-3-7-8 and 9 being safe is nice value, and it kind of draws me to, this is a bit of a silly idea, but 7-2-7-9 and 3, just saying, just a sat corner there, to say you play 9-7-3-6 and 6, and then I play 9, but I think that's sacrificing too much. You don't have pressure against both cards played, you only have pressure against one. So I think this was almost an amazing starting position for Turdz, who would just have this perfect card for 9, but as is quite difficult. Now, one thing to note is maybe you can play the starter in 9. Wait a sec. 8-3-7-8 and 9. If Delial takes from 6, you just take back with 7-2-7-9, and you have 3 and 6 safe. And as long as Delial doesn't have a big setup, and it's actually pretty hard for him to set up, I don't think he can. He has, I guess, 9-7-3-6 and 8 is his setup. Sets up 7-9-7-1. And maybe there is the setup there. Yeah. Okay, maybe not a great idea. Let's see what Turdz did. I'm not sure on that. Turdz goes 2. So this is the second game on this rule set. We have only seen one starter in 2 games. We have seen 1-7, 9-7, and 2 both games. What's the idea here? Well, one idea is that just not many things actually flip this. Right? There's just not actually that many direct attacks upon this. And so while Deli has safety next to it, and Turdz does not have safety next to it, a lot of Deli's moves next to it don't end up taking it. And that might give freedom for Turdz to do something, but this seems. Well, one thing it does is if Deli does take safety next to it, maybe Turdz' idea is he gets that 5-5-9-7 out of Deli's hand. But I'm not sure Turdz will ever have time to go in 9, right? I think he'll have to be interacting with the board. So, yesterday we saw 7-7-1-9 played in 9, and we may see that again, because that has a +1 as well. One reason to take the +1, I didn't say this, but I should have. One reason to take that +1 in 9 early is that Deli has benefit from that too. Deli can play 7-7-1-9 in 9, and he is safe, right? That's going to be an 8-10 facing out. Definitely can't take that. Can you set up against it? Doesn't seem like it. So Deli should strongly be considering. Like, I usually check 1 and 3 first here, but Deli can just go 9. Now, then Turdz does have safety, right? When I said Turdz doesn't have safety in 1 or 3, that was wrong. I should have said Turdz does not have safety in 1 or 3 while recapturing 2 if needed. But if 2 hasn't been flipped, Turdz can consider 2-9-8-6 in 3, which is safe. So I think our main line, which I think is very good for Deli, and just looks almost identical to yesterday's game, is 7-7-1-9 and 9, 2-9-8-6 and 3, 2-9-8-6 in 1. And that looks very, very dangerous for Turdz. He almost certainly doesn't have 9-7-3-6 and 4. There's the plus and 5. That just looks deeply unpleasant. Maybe you have compensation because maybe they can't take the plus and 5 due to 7-2-7-9 and 6. But then there's the same in 8. I'm very worried for Turdz here. I think Deli just following the stuff game exactly looks really promising. I kind of think that the right starter for Turdz, and maybe Deli can just set up too much against it, but I kind of think it might have been to go in 9 with 8-3-7-8. Now, the 2 key things to check there are, can Deli take in 6, and can Deli set up in like 5 or 7? And if we look at Deli's setups in 7, the 7-7-1-9 would need a 6 to the right, which he doesn't have. Same for 5-5-9-7. 2-9-8-6 cannot be set up, neither can 7-9-7-1. So the only thing that can be set up is 9-7-3-6, which Deli can set up, but that sets up Turdz too, right? And I think Turdz can't be too unhappy if Deli goes 7, Turdz takes a plus with 9-7-3-6 in 8. Deli maybe goes 6 and Turdz takes safety in 3. Like, I think those positions are fairly promising. The card in 8 being very likely safe is very pleasant. Maybe not very, very likely safe, because 5-5-7-9 sets up a plus and 5. But my guess is those positions are not so bad, without doing extensive calculation. Then there's the question, can Deli set up a threat in 8 from 5? And the answer is, again, yes. One thing he can do is he can play an 8 down, which he has. But that's the only way he can do it. So his only setup there is 2-9-8-6 in 5. Now, notably, this does not set up a threat in 6. So I think, I mean, there's the 5597, but there's not a combo threat. So I think there Turdz maybe can play 7279 and 8. Deli plays 5597 in 6. And Turdz can play 2986 in 3. Deli takes it with 7719, which is safe. What does this endgame look like? Does Deli win that? I think that's a tie. I think Turdz plays 1797 in 1. That is safe, and 9736 can either flip the card in 5 at the end for the tie, or will flip whatever's in 4 if it lands in 7. Am I counting that right? 9, 5, 8, 6. We're down 6, 4, 3. It's 5, 5, 6, 4. Yeah, we never flipped 5, so we do get 5 back at the end. So I think that kind of line does tie. So my current thought is 8378 just to get rid of that 9 square from Deli. Because, yeah, this looks so scary. Deli takes the square. And now there's a huge amount of pressure on Turdz. Maybe his idea is to go 8. Maybe his idea is we can get rid of 9, but doing so lets me use the elemental square in 8. Maybe Turdz' idea is the very unusual formation of 8378 and 8. It's creative. But then you don't have a recapture in 3, right? Then if Deli plays 2986 and 1, you can't play 7279 and 3 because of 7971 and 6. This looks really bad to me. There's very little combo play against anything Deli can do. Okay, you got the 9 left out of Deli's hand, but you can't even play 9, 7, 3, 6, and 7 anymore because they have pluses and 8. So you can't play against what they just gave up. No, this looks really, really difficult. 1-7 and 9-7 and 2 after these semifinals is never going to be played again as a starter. Like, 7-7, 1-9, and 9 just refutes it, clearly. Now, I don't think Vid was lost yesterday at this point. I think Vid could have played 8, and probably other stuff, but 8 is the most promising line I saw. But my argument for Turdz starter is 8, 3, 7, 8, and 9 means Deli doesn't get this huge square. Deli, I think if he goes in 5, we can go 8. I think if he goes in 7, we can also go 8, and both ways are okay. And so the critical line is if he takes immediately in 6, because otherwise we just block 6 and we're good because we lock in our card in 9. And I think there we can play 7, 2, 7, 9, and 3. Not 2. I don't think we go for setups. I think we just take safety in 3, and we try to play that out. And it's really uncomfortable because it's 5-5, but they can attack the card in 6. But if they don't take it immediately, we can probably block 5, and we have decent cards for that endgame, I think. Note that anything in 8 we can take from 5 because we have the 1-7-9-7, and there's a 7 facing left from 6. So I think the critical line is if Deli goes 5 there. So the question is, if the game goes 9-6-3, can Deli win with 2-9-8-6 or 7-9-7-1 in 5? Notably, neither of them sets up a threat in 2, so Turdz is not obliged to block there. Now, 7-9-7-1 I think doesn't work, because 9-7-3-6 and 8 has a really, really useful combo. So I think 2-9-8-6 in 5 is the critical move in that variation. Wait, no, sorry. These combos don't exist. There's an 8 facing right from 7. So neither one of those can be comboed. So the question is there a hold in either of those lines? I don't know. Deli's cards are really good at facing the action there, so maybe there isn't. But that means they're not going to be so good facing away from the action, so maybe there is, because maybe you'll be able to flip enough stuff on the backside. I'm not sure. Hard to evaluate. Maybe everything was huge trouble, but I just feel like we couldn't give it up 9 there. All right, I should be thinking about this situation then. I don't like 8, 3, 7, 8, and 8. I think Deli having what was my line there? What was my line there? I mean, there's safety in 7. That's an option, but I think it was just taking from 1 because Turdz can't recapture the card in 2 very well. I think it was just 2, 9, 8, 6, and 1. And like it's just hard to make a move for Turdz. 7, 2, 7, 9, and 3 is comboed. 9, 7, 3, 6, and 4 is comboed. Ooh, maybe you have counterplay there. Maybe if 9, 7, 3, 6, and 4, they can't take the combo in 5 because you have 7, 2, 7, 9 in 8. In 7. Maybe 8, 3, 7, 8, and 8 is possible. It looks really scary to me. Turdz has picked up 2, 9, 8, 6. Oh, Deli doesn't have a capture in 3 anymore. How did I miss this? So Turdz is going to play 1. Yeah, okay. Turdz is going to play 1. You can play against the fact that the 9 is out of the hand. Okay. And he's going to say, I have 7, 2, 7, 9 in my hand, so you probably can't go 4, because I can combo in 5. You might still be able to go 4, because if the combo in 5, there's a combo back in 8. But okay, 1 makes sense. This is at least a logical move. And maybe a much better move than the ones I was thinking. I should say, for the game from yesterday, I think Stuff's move in 9 ended up being really good. I had not gotten there yet, but very good move. And the card he chose for 3, I was leaning a different card in 3, but I think his card ended up being the 1797 was the better path, though I'm not 100% sure. All right, 2, 9, 8, 6, and 5. Okay. He has created a same threat in 6. God, this looks so scary to me. Maybe he's just calculated it, and maybe he has better instincts here. So we'll start looking. So obvious moves for Deli. You have safety in 1 or 3. Worth considering. You have combo play in 6 because you have a plus, which means you could consider doing something perhaps like sliding in 8 such that you can combo back in 6, right? We're just doing candidate move checks, nothing too deep. One idea is you have combo in 6, therefore you go 8. Another idea is you have safety in 1 or 3, so you go in 1 or 3. Very advanced stuff. 3 is not safe. I can see pluses. All right, so you have safety in 1. So 1 is an interesting idea. This is a better move from Turdz than I had thought. I didn't evaluate it correctly. I think he's still quite likely to be lost, but the game continues. And Deli doesn't really have a comfortable way to play. Yeah, so you can go 8, but nothing in 8 is all that exciting to put there. But 8's definitely worth considering. And one thing about 8 is you can kind of choose which card you want to put there, which card you want to chuck from your hand. But Turdz also can meet 8 and 7, right? Turdz can always meet 8 with 9, 7, 3, 6, and 7, and he probably doesn't feel that bad about it. Like, Deli takes one of his pluses in 6, and Turdz goes, okay, but I can capture that back. I'm probably not doing that badly. 7's still safe. I'm not sure, but it seems like there's a decent chance Turdz can survive 8. All right, so what happens if 5597 and 1? What is Turd's idea? Well, it doesn't flip 2. The thing is, Turdz then wants to kind of block 1, but also wants to get to play in 6 there. Do you just go 7, 2, 7, 9, and 8? And say everything that on the board that can be attacked is mine, but I have counterplay anytime you take something? I doubt it. I think Deli having combos in 6. Because, like, Turdz has a combo in 6, but Deli has 2 combos in 6, right? Deli can grab 6 at his leisure. And having, I guess you'd play 7, 2, 7, 9, and 8, so it wouldn't be weak to 5. So maybe you can just play around it and you're okay. So okay, let's check the line in more depth. 55971, 7279 8. If Deli goes something in 4, then Deli goes up 6-4. You can take back with 9736 and 7, and your 7279 is going to be amazing. Deli shouldn't go 4. We're just going through it sequentially because that way I won't forget to do anything. And when I'm talking, it's easy for me to get lost in the sauce, as they say. So if Deli starts in 7, then Turdz can, I think, again go 9736 4, and his 7279 is very good in that endgame. Okay, he can't lose if Deli starts on the left. Wait, we use 7279. Sorry, we need the 8378 to be good in that endgame. Okay, that certainly could be bad. I have to recheck. My bad. See? I don't calculate very well when I have to talk doing it, which is why I rarely go into much calculation depth, especially on early moves. Okay, so 55971, 72798. If Deli goes up in 4, Turdz can take, and 8378 will be sufficient for that endgame. Yeah, that endgame's not bad. Okay. Notably, Turdz never actually has to play 3 because 2 is not hit from 3, which I keep forgetting because Elemental screws with my brain. Okay. Deli plays 1, Turdz plays 8. Can Deli go 7? Should be pretty much the same. Yeah, I don't see why that would be a problem. Just 97364. Okay. Deli goes 3. The only thing like safe for Deli in 3 is 7971, or safe from 8378. But then Turdz is doing great. 9736 is sufficient. And if Deli goes 6, then he either doesn't flip anything or he makes it 6-4. Turdz flips back with 83783, and 9736 is good. Okay, I think 1 doesn't win. Maybe Turdz has found a really excellent move. If Turdz holds this game, huge congratulations to him. Doesn't mean Deli did anything wrong because, like, Deli got an initiative and sometimes your opponent doesn't fold. But I think Turdz should be really proud of this game if he holds it for finding a save after 9, because this was really bad. Like, really clear press for Deli. Okay, Deli has picked up his 797. And he goes 4. Okay. He's keeping combo potential open, but one thing I don't like about moves like this is it gives the opponent freedom to put whatever they want to put in 1. So Turdz can figure out what is the ideal remaining cards for this queue, and I'll just keep those. So for instance, I think you want 9736. That's going to go +1 on the bottom. Is Turdz going to win this game? I think it is now not completely impossible. Let's say Turdz. Okay, the score is 6-4, so he's not going to win it because he's not going to go +2. But let's say Turdz goes 8-3-7-8 and 1. Where does Deli go? If Deli goes in 3, Turdz takes the same in 6. Turdz goes up 6-4, and Turdz wins. If Deli blocks 6, then Turdz can take whatever he blocked 6 with 7-2-7-9. Note it has a plus against a 9. And it's going to be 5-5, and his 9-7-3-6 completely sweeps that endgame. Or it takes enough to win. Oops, sorry. If Deli goes in 8, then 9-7-3-6 is guaranteed a double capture, and Turdz is just up 6-4, and he wins. So Deli's plan must be to go in 7. And I think this is where Deli's tie is. So 8-3-7-8 and 1. Deli goes in 7. Which card does he play in 7? I'm not sure it matters a ton. Let's say 2-9-8-6 just for simplicity, but I'm not convinced 9-7-3-6 is any different. Turdz can play 9-7-3-6 and 8, making it 5-5. And now Deli can play a plus and 6, making it 6-4, and Turdz is 7-2-7-9 captures back at the end. So Deli is not losing against 1, but it's actually pretty close. I don't think switching out any of the cards helps Turdz. Like, I think 7-2-7-9 is better than 8-3-7-8, so should be kept. Does Deli have a threat in 1? He does. So you do have to, I think, interact with this. Are there any, like, huge just setup possibilities? Like 7-2-7-9 and 8, setting up 7, but no, then you have nowhere else. Yeah, you just don't have enough other squares. And I'm not sure you can ever set them up. Like 3 sets up 6, but 6 is already the one square you have threats in. Could you set up something crazy in 7? I don't think so. Yeah. So I think you got to go 1 here if you're Turdz, and I think Deli has the tie in 7. But pretty remarkable how deeply unpleasant a position I thought this was, and how now Turdz gets to look for a win. I think 4 was a very Akiyama-like move from Deli, but in this case, not a particularly good one. I think Turdz is now in the clear, unless I'm just missing something huge. But I think Turdz is now both in the clear, but also gets to try to look for a win, which I don't think he has. I mean, I don't think it was that bad a move. And I didn't find a win for Deli, so, like, yeah. If I didn't find a win, then Turdz was almost certainly going to hold. And so Deli choosing between ties maybe doesn't make that much of a difference. But this does seem like maybe lost the thread a little. But I'm not sure what was best. Maybe there was a problem with 5-5-9-7 and 1. I thought Turdz had a tie, but maybe there was more than that there. I didn't really check 8 fully, but 8 didn't seem that promising. I think Turdz just about kept it together. And one thing, so why did the move in 5 work? Because the move in 5 only set up 1 square 6, and Deli had it better than Turdz. I think the reason it worked was 1, that card in 2's high numbers out facing and being safe to 3 meant blocking 5 had similar value to blocking 1 for securing that card for later, right? They were both moves that just meant this card is closer to being locked in, even if it already has the 9 facing towards 5. Yeah. Maybe it just speaks to how good 1797 is, even though it, has not done well as a starter today, or this match, this round of the tournament. One thing about the threat in 6 is it created a threat in a square. Got loud vehicles outside. It created a threat in a square that Deli was not going to block this turn. So it created a more lasting threat. So there's the idea of creating a threat in 6 is more valuable than creating a threat in 8, because that is unlikely to be blocked in the near future. But I think the combo in 6 didn't end up mattering that much for these lines. Like, it obviously is relevant. This would be lost, I'm sure, if you didn't have the threat in 6. Maybe not now that the move in 4 has been played, but would have been. But it doesn't seem like that was really the critical thing. But I think you can't go 6, and Turdz had really good play against 8. All right, Turdz uses 9-7-3-6. Why did he decide the 8-3-7-8 was better to hold on to? And doesn't make a difference. Oh, because 8-3-7-8 can sweep on the right. So now with 2-9-8-6 and 7, Turdz can take with 7-2-7-9. Man, I'm glad I'm not playing an elemental rule set because I completely forgot that 7 had an element in it that wasn't just a +1 for 9-7-3-6s. So okay, let's check the lines. If Deli goes in 1, and actually I might have confused the lines earlier. I might have thought Turdz still had his hand 8-3-7-8 in his hand sometimes. I apologize for my bad calculations today. I really am not ideal with E. That's okay though. It also means that the moves players find can be more exciting, right? But I do like to have a better finger on the pulse, as it were, than I feel like I have with these E games. All right, so and especially when I go off on tangents and then have to come back and analyze, sometimes I get okay. Enough about how I get things wrong, and on to how hopefully they get things right. So Deli has already picked up his card. So he's saying, yes, I saw this, and I have 2-9-8-6 picked up. But where does 2-9-8-6 go? Because if it does go 7, but Turdz can not win with 7-2-7-9 and 8 because 9-7-3-6 and 6 ties. So 2-9-8-6 and 7 should be the hold against this as well. Yeah, shouldn't be any different. Okay, so same stuff, but 9-7-3-6 instead of 8-3-7-8 threw in slightly different wrinkles, but it looks like Deli's gonna tie the same way. Curious plan in 4. I don't like it. I think the move in 2 was not a great starter. I think the move in 9 was the correct response. I've come around on the move in 5. I think it was good, though I don't think I fully understand why. And the move in 4 swung from kind of Turdz has to find ties to now Deli has to find ties, which is of course not the end of the world because Deli's gonna find ties, but not to my taste. I think there's Deli. One thing he does that's really impressive is games he's behind kind of the whole way. Often at the end of it, his opponent will have like one tie. It's just this weird thing that happens if you look at Deli games. Is you'll be like, oh, Deli's in a little trouble. Not like games where he's lost, just games where he's like a little behind. Like, oh, Deli's a little behind. Yep, Deli's a little behind. Wait, why does his opponent have to find one tie at the end? And like by the end, I mean move kind of 6, 7, 8-ish. But there's this remarkable pattern of it that doesn't really exist in other players. And this move in 4 feels like not the way to get to that, right? Now, this was a game Deli was ahead, but this was kind of, we went from Deli is pressing to Turdz gets to press. So, how would we feel about this if we're the two players? What adjustments? If you're Deli, you immediately got an advantage. I don't know why you'd be at all fussed about this game. I feel like you were in good shape and just should feel pretty good. Like, I don't like the move in 4, but I also don't think it changed the outcome of the game or had any serious chance to change the outcome of the game, right? I think, like, it was going to be a tie, and it was still a tie. I just didn't like this path to a tie. If your Turdz, you did not find a starter, and that might have just been uncomfortable E, I think you should feel really happy with your play that you survived this. But I also you were so close to having starters though. I don't know what you make of that. And I don't know if you like can think, "Oh, my hand didn't line up well," because who knows what the hell lines up well, right? How many times were rules relevant to this game? Elemental was very relevant to 9 being safe, right? So Elemental was definitely relevant, but I mean same in plus. Um, After the move in 5, there were setups for both players in 6. Other than that, there were very few lines that mattered at all. There were a couple lines where 7279 landing in 3 holds or wins because 9736 is covered. But just very few lines where Same and Plus felt relevant. Just some like, does this card sweep or not? Um, yeah. So given that, it's hard to be like, yes, these cards lined up, or no, these cards didn't line up. It does seem like a lot of the plus potential was on these 2 gaps, right? Which makes sense. There's a lot of 9s and 7s going around. There's going to be a lot of 2 gaps. Um, and so your cards that are going to be able to play off 2 gaps are going to be the better cards. So maybe Turdz should rethink 8378. But then again, if Turdz had been able to land 8378 and 9 and there hadn't been the Fire Elemental in 6, we would have been like, oh, 8378, best card ever. Like, just got Turdz a huge advantage. This is all about the 8378. So I'm not sure what to make of that. I have no idea what changes I'd make with either player. I think one of the things about Elemental is the cues it gives you on what changes to make are way, way weaker than without Elemental, or with what adjustments to make. Um, and that's something like, obviously, I'm not an E fan. I think you could call a strength or a weakness of E, is that it's harder to figure out where you stand and take advantage of it over the course of a match. And you could say that means there's more skill to doing so because it's a harder thing to do, or you could say there's less skill to doing so because the margins you can get from it are just going to be much smaller because a slight change in elementals is going to mean even if you did adjust really well, it could easily come about badly for you. And I would probably lean towards the it makes adjusting less valuable, which in general favors Deli, who makes very good in-game adjustments but tends not to make any hand adjustments. And so a game where you're making all in-game adjustments and never having to adjust your hands, because it's going to match up differently next game anyway, and all the lessons you learned are going to be thrown out the window, is probably something he's going to be more comfortable with. Or at least it's something that's going to like his biggest weakness, I think we can all agree, is he sticks to hands and is targetable. But now it's just not targetable, right? And so I think this kind of erases his biggest weakness. Okay, if they continue playing, I'm going to move on to a new video, so we'll end this one here, and I'm going to go get a charger. So, see you in the next video.